Mike. And welcome, Mike. After 15 minutes, our timer, I guess I'll do the timing, will give you a buzzer warning 5 minutes before the 20-minute time limit. Please make sure you are muted and begin your share now. May we record your voice, Mike?
You may record my voice.
All right. Thank you very much. Ready to go.
Great. Well, thank you. Today I come into this meeting feeling nervous, a little stressed. I think my defect of really wanting to impress everybody is sort of raising its head a little bit. So I want to start with the third step prayer, so I can get my head where it needs to be, which is in God's will. So, God, I offer myself to Thee to build with me and to do with me as Thou wilt. Relieve me tonight of the bondage of self, that I may better do Thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help tonight of Thy power, Thy love, and Thy way of life. May I do Thy will always, especially right now. I'm Mike, compulsive overeater from Washington State, Central Washington. Beautiful place. I have been in the program for not quite 3 years now, and I've come to realize, that in the fellowship here, I'm still in the beginning stages, and that's okay for me. Used to not be okay. Used to be that after 6-8 months in the program, I should know it all. I should have it all down. I should have it all together and be the star, which I'm not. So I'm okay with being still in the beginning stages and still having a lot to learn. So that's a new thing for me, and that actually comes from the program. So in my history with food, there's no dramatic things about food. I can't look back and point to any particular time where I realized food was a problem. I was never a major binger in a short period of time. My pattern with food, and I don't know when it began, was to be a constant grazer. My binges would play out over a week, 2 weeks, a month. Basically, my binging was my life. And so there was no particular place I started with food. And for most of my life, I'm 67 now. I started the program when I was 64. For most of my life, the way I ate was normal. It was normal for me to always have food around, always be going to get food. It was normal for me to never, ever be hungry, actually hungry. That was just normal. It was normal for me to go to a soup and salad restaurant and have 10 bowls of soup and a couple giant salads. That was the norm. When it became, and there was no giant weight gain in that, just steady incremental gain. That apparently the way the disease works in me, it didn't really care that much about weight. It just cared about me never ever feeling anything. So it cared about making sure I was eating all the time, just grazing my way through life, staying numb, staying in a food coma all the time. It began to be a problem, at least began to be recognized as a problem on my, I'm getting some interference. Can you guys hear me okay? Good, all right. it began to be a problem when on my 64th birthday, the organization that I had worked for in one capacity or another for 43 years, called me in and told me that they weren't renewing my contract and I would be leaving their employ in 3 months. Quite the blow. They didn't know it was my birthday, probably should have. And they didn't know I was going to retire, planning on retiring a year. They might have asked. But they made their decision. And I didn't react so well. I was very angry. And what I began to do was to increase the food and to make sure I was constantly eating. And my wife eventually mentioned to me that she was getting concerned by how much I was eating. And that struck a chord with me. That's a problem. And so I had been actually going to another 12-step fellowship, Al-Anon, and had heard about OA, looked up OA, found a meeting, found actually a men's meeting in San Diego where I lived at the time, on a Sunday morning, and went to it and realized within just a few minutes, maybe 15 minutes into the meeting, these are my people. You know, these are the people who understand me, because I could understand them. I could figure out what they meant when they were talking about their experience, strength, and hope. And it seemed to make so much sense to me when one of the guys at that meeting talked about his abstinence being 3 moderate meals a day, and I think he said 1 snack. And I thought, well, that can be done. I could do that. And it was my higher power, I think, at work at the time that led me to that particular meeting, led me to a fellowship in San Diego, a bunch of meetings, and got me started in the program. It took me about 6 months to get a sponsor. Part of that I delayed because we were moving from San Diego up to Bakersfield, California. And if you never go there, don't worry about it. So I started going to OA up in Bakersfield, found a sponsor, and actually began to work the steps. And it was in working the steps that my life began to change, that the benefits to the program actually started to work, and food got under control in a significant, serious way, that I actually could live with only 3 moderate meals a day and a snack, and I could survive what happens when you only have 3 moderate meals a day. You have feelings. I could survive having feelings, which I didn't know was possible. And frankly, initially I didn't want it to be possible because I didn't want to have the feelings. But I found out it was possible. And it was in working the steps, you know, with my sponsor who took me through the steps pretty much as an AA person would, because he was initially an AA person. So we did the big book. We did the steps as they were in the big book. And I found that I began to change. The things began to change. And that also found that my problem in life was not the food at all. That was a symptom. My problem was a thinking problem and an emotional problem, which was fear of feelings. The food was simply a way for me to avoid my problems, to numb myself out so I didn't have to deal with who I am, didn't have to deal with the things in my life that were true, didn't have to come out of the kind of the numb fantasy life that I lived by making sure I never felt a feeling. So it working the steps for me has become the bedrock and the heart of my approach to the 12-step program, my approach to OA. I have to stay constantly in the steps. Every morning I reaffirm the first 3 steps, and I end it with the prayer that I started with today, the 3rd step prayer. Because if I don't do that, I start to not live the program. And it struck me just a little earlier today. We have a lot of times we say, I don't work the program perfectly. I work the program, and I'd say, well, that's pretty true for me too. But there's been something about that phrase that bothered me, and this is for me, my experience. When I say I'm not working the program perfectly, in my mind, the word "but I should be" is there. That big "but." And if you're a perfectionist like me, you know about having a big "but" because it's there. But I should be working it perfectly. And I found that that's certainly just a character defect of perfectionism at work. But it's bothered me. And I discovered recently for me, just a change in one word has been a real gift from my higher power in working the program. And especially working the program with my perfectionist character defect and my self-judgment, my self-critique. When I do anything imperfectly, I critique myself, I judge myself because imperfect is not allowed. Where does that come from? Doesn't really matter. It's from home. Okay? Grew up in a crazy home with crazy dad, and that was one of his things, one of his character defects. So I learned I had to be perfect. But what I've discovered recently, and again, I think this is a gift from my higher power, that instead of saying, I don't work the program perfectly, but I just changed that "but" to "and." I don't work the program perfectly, and I'm still working the program. I really want to eat more. Used to say, but I'm not going to, and so I'm going to fight. I'm going to. And now I'm starting to say, I really want to eat that. I want to have more, and I'm not gonna. And I'm not gonna. And what it does for me is it allows me to get out of the battle mode and into some self-responsibility, into more trusting my higher power, and just living with the reality that 2 things can be true. I'm still needing the program. I am not healed of my food addiction. I'm not. And that doesn't matter because I've got the program. I can do both. I can need to be in the program, and I can be in the program. And that process frees me to continue to grow, continue to live in the program, and develop myself as finally a person who has feelings and knows what feelings are like.
Got 5 minutes, Nick.
Thank you. Know that feelings sometimes are not pleasant, and that's okay. So now what I'm trying to say is not worry about working the program perfectly, but I like this word, I try to work it assiduously. Now that's a $1.50 word, isn't it? Assiduously. I love it because I'm a word nerd. It comes from the Latin, a Latin verb which basically means to dwell next to, to live right there. And I like the word dwell. You're dwelling there. You're rooted there. So I try and work the program assiduously. Every day I try and dwell in the program, to be in the program, and allow it to give me the healing that it wants to give. You know, and that my growth, if I'm working the program assiduously, doesn't mean my growth is going to be from point A in a straight line to point B. That's not how my growth works. It's never worked that way. But when I'm working it assiduously, I go like this. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. I spiral forward, gradually spiraling forward into freedom from my food obsession, freedom from my compulsions, freedom from my character defects. And I like that notion for me of a spiral forward because that describes for me the reality of it. I'm filled with character defects, but my character defects have improved. I spiral my way forward, working on them, work on one, work on another, just keep working, keep working. And when I stop being assiduous about it, I start to unwind a little bit. I don't just fall back. I just kind of unwind, start moving backwards slowly until I realize it's time to be assiduous again, time to start dwelling in the program again. So, close time to quit, I believe. So I just want to say to you that the program for me has been not so much a lifesaver for me, but it's been a life giver for me. Because when I was in the food, keeping constantly in a coma because of the food, constantly not having feelings, I couldn't live life to the fullest. I couldn't experience the joy of life. But with the program, with working the steps, with staying in the program, dwelling in the program today, just dwell in it today, then today I can have joy. You know, I can have begin to feel the gift of the life that my higher power has given me and wants to give all of it. So, thanks for letting me share tonight. I appreciate it. Roger, thanks for the invitation. And I will end it there. Thanks.